One of the most fundamental ideas and concepts in Judaism is the idea of keeping Shabbat. We're told that we observe the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week. We rest on the Sabbath to mark the creation of the world. We remember on the Sabbath that God created the world and rested on the seventh day, and that is why we rest on the Sabbath. And the question is, if really the idea of the Sabbath is remembering the 6 days of creation and remembering that God had created the world in 7 days, in 6 days, and rest on the seventh, then why is it that the focus is so much on resting on the seventh day? Why don't we focus on the 6 days of the week? Why don't we focus and say, hey, why don't you work really hard for 6 days, and that's going to remind you that God has created the world in 6 days. Why is the focus so much on the seventh day? Furthermore, when the Torah describes observing the Sabbath, it tells us that the Jewish people kept the Sabbath, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et Shabbat, la'asot et Shabbat. They made the Sabbath, and the question is, if Sabbath is really all about not doing and refraining from work, then why is it that it's described as something that you proactively do? And the answer is very simple. The answer is, when we look at what the idea of Sabbath is, it's not just a neutral zone. It's not just a time in which we kind of tone out of everything and sit there like zombies, focusing on just letting ourselves rest. It's much more than that. On the Sabbath, we give a positive affirmation that God has created the world. But it's not just that. It's that God has created the world and He's done it for a purpose. During the week, every day we're busy with our daily routines, we're going to work, we're busy with our families, with all kinds of different things. However, we kind of forget that there's a purpose for all of this, that there's a reason for all this running and coming and going. And the idea is that it reminds us that there's something beyond the material world. And the beauty of the Sabbath is remembering that this world isn't just about paying our bills, and it's not just about just keeping the store open. It's about something loftier than that, something higher than that. And that's why on the Sabbath we don't just refrain from work, but we positively affirm that this world has a purpose. We positively affirm that God has created this world and that it's all going somewhere. So what are we remembering on the Sabbath? We're remembering, yes, that God rested on the seventh day, but we're also remembering that this rest resembles a higher purpose, a higher meaning. It resembles that the world wasn't created just to go on in an eternal cycle. It's rather something that a place that we're supposed to prepare ourselves for something and move on to higher and loftier goals. So this Sabbath, when you're resting, please remember that it's not just about not doing, but it's about having a good time, remembering what life is all about, and that there's more to life than what the eye catches. Thank you so much for listening.